Hey, Danielle, how's it going?
Hey, what's up?
It's all good. It's all good. I was sitting here talking on mute for like 2 minutes, like somebody could hear me.
This is what happens when you're on time.
You know what I mean?
You should have just been late.
See, if I'd have been late, it'd all been good. But see, I had to be on time, so then see things get all screwed up.
Yep, that's what happens.
So, anyways, I think we can just start jumping into this discussion because, I got hope. Normally I write my questions in the group. I just write my questions. People can tell me, where I'm off or, on or what. But I didn't get to all my questions. So now I just re-listened to the call, the today's earnings call, and now I got all kinds of questions. I got more questions. So.
And wait. Well, before we get to your questions, because we have some chatty Cathys in the group today, I can see. And I know this topic is going to get everybody all fired up. Let's everyone be respectful. And when you get up on stage to chat, don't hog the stage time so that everyone has an opportunity to say their piece about Uncle Barry and these stock prices and everything else that John's going to open up this can of worms.
And by the way, I see Oleg in the audience. What is happening? First time he's here. Welcome. I'm so glad you were able to join one of our chats. I also see you in the chat. So I appreciate you joining so that we can. I know your deep insights always are thoughtful. So I'm glad you're here. Anyway, let me kick it off. This is I guess this isn't our weekly wellness check. That's how I normally start it off. But this is a special edition. This is the midweek wellness check, where we tend to just have like thoughtful conversation about connected fitness, about the fitness industry, a lot and primarily about Peloton, since most of us are all Peloton riders or runners. But it doesn't have to be specific to that. I'm more about people, so sometimes we drift off into other topics. So that's all cool. If you want to join the conversation, hit the hand on the lower right of your phone and we'll bring you right up on stage and you can be right in the mix with the conversation. If you don't want to do that, it is all good. I could talk, so I'll just keep talking. So, ask the question. So if you don't want to do that, feel free to just hang out in the audience, join the text chat. Like I see folks are in there and just, talking there if you like. If you have a question and you don't want to come up and verbalize it yourself, and you, again, just write it in the text chat and we'll bring it up verbally. So, one last thing before we get started. I think I remembered this time, Danielle. Anybody who's in the audience that's not a part of the Facebook group, it's Run, Lift, and Live on Facebook. That's where we discuss some of these topics during the week and get opinions, and those conversations formulate what we then discuss on Clubhouse. So if you're not in the group, find it and join it if you want to kind of hear the discussion prior to talking here. Anyway. Let me figure out how to start this. Listen, I had been hearing from various people that, John, I don't think it's going to be a good look Tuesday morning, right? And then I was hearing, probably was myself creating this rumor that for two earning cycles in a row, they've been doing the earnings call in the morning, and they never did that before. And Uncle Barry's here now, 2 earnings cycles it's in the morning. So my mindset was like, is that because there's an assumption that each time there's going to be some type of good news? And both times I've been, well, at least the market told me I was wrong, because both times the market goes a whole different direction than I thought it was going to go. So that's the first thing that I observed, that I'm sure you guys will have comments on. Maybe you can help me out as to why are they doing this at 8:30 in the morning now? What's the point of that? But ultimately, they lost almost $800 million last quarter. Hardware margins were like in the negatives, like a negative 11%, which help me understand what's up with that. That's wild. I remember historically it was in the 20s, so I don't know what's going on with that. Year over year revenue, at least hardware, connected fitness revenue was down 400 million from last quarter, same quarter last year. Subscription revenue was up, but it was only up like 130 million. So, I hear these people always telling me like, but the subscriber is more important. That subscription revenue is more important. But historically, I would look at the numbers and I'd be like, but wait a minute, the margins on the hardware are making like the subscription revenue look like nothing. So like, what's up? And so, and I'm not seeing the growth to a point that would give me like an outlook to see when are we going to get to this point people keep telling me about, right? And so I'm interested in perspectives on that. I'm also interested, I'm just throwing everything out there, guys, so that you guys can comment to whatever you see fit. I noticed that they're still gaining a lot of subs. I mean, they gained 195,000 new connected fitness subs in the quarter, which I think is kind of impressive, unless you compare yourself to yourself, right? So if I compare it to last quarter or this quarter last year, then I'm going, okay, yeah, I guess it's down. But it's still kind of impressive to me. But listening to the call, I guess Uncle Barry's just not the greatest orator, so how he delivers messages, like maybe I'm struggling with it. Maybe I'm not hearing the message because I'm struggling with how he's presenting it. Maybe that could be a part of my challenge. And then the last thing is he sounded like, in some of the things he said, as if he was moving towards a model that would make Peloton, to me, look like Echelon. Like he talked about retailing the hardware. He talked about coming up with a plan for the hardware to be delivered without a need for install. Like all these things sound like the Echelon model to me. And so now I'm wondering, like, am I about to go into a Costco and see a Peloton? And if I do, what does that mean? Like, does that make it not look like the aspirational brand it used to be? And now they're a true competitor outside of the leadership role? Like, what does this all mean? So, okay, a lot I threw out there. Anyway, Dan, what's happening? You there, Dan? All right, I guess we can't hear Dan. What's going on, Mike? And if you're talking, Mike, you're on mute.
No, I unmuted.
Okay.
So I think the first thing is people, like, Uncle Barry is not the greatest orator, but he's a CFO, and I've dealt with the old white dude CFOs, and they're not the best speakers, but behind the scenes, he knows what he's doing.
Okay.
And so, like, we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, all of the past sins of Peloton aren't Uncle Barry's fault. Yeah. And he had to come in and answer somewhat difficult questions from analysts today after being in the role for, 3 months. So that throwing him under the bus is unfair.
Yeah.
But like I posted in the group, like him saying thinly capitalized, that's a soundbite all of the journalists glom on. And I just wish he wouldn't have said that. That's the one thing on the call I wish he wouldn't have said.
Help me understand. Thinly capitalized, meaning help me understand that.
So their free cash flow has been hampered by their supply chain costs, their inventory, the cost of carrying the inventory that they accrued during the pandemic. So they don't have enough free cash flow to monetize the business going forward, which is why they took the $750 million from JPM and Goldman Sachs, which, like I told Evan Bender today, they did the IPO. So they're not selling the company. So right. I'll put this, I'll memorialize this. People that want them to sell the company, that is a very bad idea.
Yeah.
I think we kind of romanticize with selling the company. It's easy to acquire a company. The merger is horrible. And that would be a bad outcome for investors, Peloton owners, subscribers.
Yeah. So
the fact that the IPO leaders put money in, I don't care what the interest rate is. That gets them to FY23, which Barry talked about on the call, to get to a positive free cash flow model. And they're kind of retrofitting their CAC LTV model also makes sense. And Barry understands this better than any of us do. And I think that was lost even on analysts.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I'll leave that at that. But going back to your hardware margins,
Yep.
a big point of that minus 11%, I believe, was the number.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big percentage of that was one-time charge because of the F-up of the Tread Plus return and their inability to forecast the amount of people they're returning. So the harder margin numbers aren't as dire as people interpreted.
That makes sense. I was wondering if that was an impact to that.
No, there was a major impact to that. So it got buried, of course, because people don't like to actually have facts. But the fact that people are returning Tread Plus, and I may be as well.
Yeah, right. I might too. I don't know yet.
I'm waiting to see. But just as an aside, I don't want to divert the conversation. I'll just put this out here for a pin in it. I don't understand why a slatted treadmill is more dangerous than a belt treadmill from somebody behind. But I'll leave it at that.
Right. Yeah, I get you. Well, I want to answer one of the questions in the chat. Lynn was asking why are they not dedicated to fixing the Tread Plus issues? And when I was listening to that whole idea of Barry suggesting that they're going to want to go to retailers and that they want to deliver their hardware in a fashion that doesn't require install. Someone in my group said this, and I think they're right. That suggests to me there ain't going to be no Tread Plus. But
how hard is it? So I just got my Bike Plus replaced like a week ago, and the XPO delivery is fantastic. But I could have put it together. It was like 3 parts, and the Tread Plus, which I'm looking at now, there's not that many parts. Somebody said IKEA, I think, in your group.
Yep.
This is not an IKEA piece of furniture. This is a couple components. If anybody's bought a PC or a video game console, it's no worse than that. So I don't understand the concern that there's so many components. You're not building a PC from the chips on up.
Yep.
So I think Uncle Barry's right there. Once again, did he articulate it properly? No.
Okay, so wait a minute. Are you saying that you're relative to my comment and Lynn's question with regards to Tread Pluses, you don't think that negates the possibility that the Tread Plus might come back? Is that what you're thinking?
I damn well hope. Sorry for the French. I damn well hope it comes back.
Yeah, I hope so
otherwise
too.
I'm returning mine in October. But once again, I don't see any significant safety negations or insufficiencies from any other treadmill that I've ever run on in my life.
Yeah.
In a hotel or wherever. And the number of components on it, other than the sheer weight of it,
right?
Somebody can install it. But if I was talking to Evan again, he's a big Nordic Track fan. I had the original Nordic Track ski machine back in the mid-90s. I bought it. I had to put it together, and it wasn't light. So they can figure that out, and I think that's a good international strategy. Back to a comment I made in your group months ago, their growth is international, and they need to turn this into a subscription model, which Barry's CAC LTV model, which I think once again was lost on a lot of people, is actually very genius.
So, I'm going to bring Dan in really quick, but before I bring Dan in,
I'm done talking. I don't want to monopolize this.
Yeah, if I can join Mike's room, that'd be great.
No, but before I bring you in, Dan, I just want to one thing that Mike said. Uncle Barry made it kind of clear that with regards to fiscal 2023, which begins in July of this year, and also is when sometime within fiscal 2023, they were saying their goal was to be profitable. And he made it very clear on the call that looking international, or at least to specific international markets, would not get them there. So now that's not prioritized. So I found that kind of interesting. I'll have to go back and listen to see if he was talking about a specific international market or international in general. But it sounded like international was about to take a back burner.
But that refutes his thing about getting to 100 million subs. There's no way you get to 100 million subs in the U.S.
Yeah, and I think it was specifically about this goal of getting to, net positive in 2023. But I heard that from him. So I'm going to go back and look.
This is why you should do the call after hours, not before coffee.
Anyway, go ahead, Dan. What's happening?
Yeah, Dan.
Hi, guys and gals. So let me run through. I'll be tight and quick because I know there's a lot of people on the stage. I'll give you my 6 takeaways. I too was on the call this morning. First of all, to have everybody, I like to start with positive everything in life. So, to have so many passionate people here in a room that wasn't usual. We're also passionate about this, and it's an amazing community, and there's still 3 million members. So I don't think the ship's going down right away. With that said, so that's great. That's great news. We love each other. We love the community. We love the instructors. There's 3 million people. That's good.
The right away part is what's concerning, Dan, when you said right away at the end of that sentence.
Right. Well, so let's cover a couple things. I'll hit bullet points and come back to anything, John, you want me to expound upon. So Number one, from a cash flow standpoint, and I won't get the number exactly right, but they lost something like 745 million in the quarter, and they had 650 million on hand. So from a cash standpoint, they, I was listening to this Tesla thing the other night. Elon Musk sat down and the investors said, how many more months do you have? And he said 10. And they said 10 months, that's fine. He said, no, 10 weeks. So I don't know if Peloton, if they didn't get the JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs venture debt or whatever it was and get that line, I don't know if they had 12 weeks. I mean, that is the reality of it is I don't know if the company had 3 months. Maybe it wasn't in doubt because they were going to pay such a high rate, whatever it was. But one, cash flow is a serious issue. Yep. Number two, if it wasn't said yet in this room or anything today, not to get Danielle or anyone upset, but I now understand why the rower and any innovation can't be done, because it's not just a question of making molds, but they don't have enough money to commercialize and, more importantly, hold inventory and market any innovation.
Okay.
One thing the CFO tucked in. Sorry, John, I was going to run through everything, but I'll stop.
No, go ahead.
One thing they tucked in for a split second was the guide. Now, the guide's not going to add a lot to the bottom line to EBITDA, but the guide, I'd say after today, the guide was done because there was such a small capital investment in the device and the mold and so forth. So they didn't talk about the guide being, they weren't excited, it beat expectations, and I understand why. Either it was just okay or it wasn't going to make up $750 million. But the point was there was no innovation, and I don't think they can afford, maybe with the money from JP Morgan and Goldman, but there was no talk of new products, no talk of innovation whatsoever, and not even a check-in on the guide. So that was my second bullet point. One was cash, second was innovation. Third of 5 here, I think. Third was, I thought the most ridiculous thing that was said was sorry, I'm in an area, there's some kids yelling, but by the CFO, and she said about gyms. There's 180 million people that belong to gyms. I was like, if anyone watched Shark Tank and ever says, well, it's a $3 billion market and we're going to get 1% and that's going to make us a $30 million company, like they blow you out of the water. So the fact that she said there was 180 million gym goers is such a elementary comment that I just couldn't believe it, that, this is the way they're doing their market research. Number 4 on the app, they said the app is the spear, and they said, and I'm not as much of a fan of Barry as everyone else, but they said the app is a spear, and they said there was a stat for those who didn't hear this today. It's a little bit of marketing talk, but they said it has a 4% unaided awareness, which means that if you say to people, hey, what workout or fitness app are you aware of, without any prompting, and only 4 out of 100 people said Peloton. So he sees that as opportunity. can see where he comes from. I see it as if they become an app and they're leading Europe with an app because they don't want to put the expense into equipment, even with the inventory on hand. They start swimming in a really deep pool of every app out there for fitness. So that's a whole long conversation, but I understand their strategy. I really, I think the unique point of difference is the bike. And the last thing I will hit with nobody mentioned today maybe that I just saw is, and this is the only point I'm all fired up about as a guy who used to be a CEO, I believe they canceled all the classes today except for an 8 o'clock class with, mispronounce her name, but the woman who does the classes in Spanish, Ramon. And the classes were on the schedule. So if Barry said, okay, we had the earnings call, I want to pull the whole company together and let everyone know everything's okay, like as a former CEO of a small company, like I would get the message across, A, it's business as usual, and B, let's not make our members freak out by having a call today that says we're in trouble, and then what do? Cancel the classes, all the live classes today. So that was the only part. So I don't know.
Classes weren't canceled. I worked out live with Robin at 10:30 or 10. I worked out live with Kirsten at 10:30.
Okay.
Jess was live tonight at 5:30 and 6:15.
Oh, my app was
canceled.
Okay, then I may have looked at the wrong thing. I was driving, but I saw no classes tonight on cycling.
No, Dan, you're an A/B test. You were canceled. Sorry.
So that's my.
Canceled after his alley comment.
I was about to say I meant to get on and write. I will write. I will not make fun out of. So that's my. I've been in this business a long time. That's just my quick take on things today. Where do I think it's going? I think he'd love to see. I think he'd love to see a Peloton in every Lifetime Fitness across the country, and you have to buy the app to ride. I think I heard them talk about men, which I've talked about for a long time as a target. And the last thing I'll just leave out there as a big thing is he wouldn't talk about the distribution. I don't know why. He said, I don't know a lot. John, or whoever put that out, really bothered me that he said, I don't know a lot. But what's my big prediction? My big prediction is their distribution method is they'll put them in Apple stores and Apple will take a 20% stake in the company. That's my, I know nothing, but that's my big idea is their distribution network, third party will be through Apple stores and maybe Apple will take 20% of the company. So that's Dan. I'm long-winded and complete.
So John, just not to interrupt, Dan, that was fantastic. Just on that, did anybody break out the pre-core revenue from subscription and hardware revenue? I was going to do it. I didn't have time. But
I didn't do a breakout there. I kind of assumed. I made an assumption that the pre-core revenue is probably not. It's similar in its lackluster to the connected fitness business, but I don't know that. But I know I didn't break it out.
No, it seemed immaterial. If you look at their overall revenue, I would put it at less than $100 million, which was surprising.
Yeah.
But we should we should actually do that offline. But I'll shut up now. But
Cool.
Dan, thank you.
No, cool. I have to check it out. What's going on, Chris? I got a question about hardware. But my mind is so horrible. I've forgotten it. So I'm going to try to pick it back up while you speak. But what's going on, Chris?
Not much. I was just going to chime in and say the idea of them doing third-party retailers isn't entirely new. They've been doing it in the UK and Australia for a while now. I think in the UK they partner with John Lewis, who you can buy a Peloton with, and in Australia I think it's David Jones you can go. So they've been trying in their international markets for a while now.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay, cool. So I guess my question about that though was really around in the States, domestic. Will that historically we kind of talked about how they liked having the Peloton stores in the mall around the Apple store, or in the mall that also has a Tesla dealership in it, and like they were trying to be aspirational in their own kind of vision by making sure that they were aligned and around these brands that have that aspirational feel. Like I guess ultimately my question is if you now are walking into Costco picking up like, a gallon jug of ketchup, and you turn to your left and there's a Peloton right there you could put in your cart too and assemble yourself. Did that just change the aspirational feel of the bike?
What if it's like with a Nordstrom though, where tonal is? Does that make it any better?
Maybe. I hear you. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But gotcha. Before I pull you in, Jackie, one thing that I forgot to mention. I noticed in previous earnings calls, we'll get the deck and it'll be like all fancy, and there'll be like this instructor at the top in this like motion kind of pose. It's like trying to motivate you in reading this investor, deck on the first page, and then it'll go in and there'll be like all this information, and then eventually it'll be high level summarized numbers, but eventually get to the detail. And then when you listen to the call, it would start out, and John Foley would just start out like, with his spiel, and, in the past, William Lynch, who is no longer there now, might say something, and then Jill Woodworth, the CFO, might say something, and you might go 5-10 minutes before then they say, okay, now we're opening it up for analyst calls. Okay, so today they send out the investor deck, or it was more like, a 2-pager or something. Very thin. There ain't no instructor picture at the top. There's no motivational kind of words. It's not all fancy. It's like, very black and white. This is what it is. That's it. And then when the call started, Uncle Barry was just like, look, I ain't gonna regurgitate what's already in that letter. So William Lynch ain't here no more. He's pursuing other opportunities, and that's about it. So questions, like that was it. I'm wondering, like one side of me goes, okay, we just down to business now. Another side of me is like, that's kind of odd. So I don't know what that all says. But anyways, I don't spin on that for a second, and I'll bring Jackie in. What's up, Jackie?
Hey, John. It's good to be back. I wasn't able to make the last few clubhouses, but I've been listening. And as always, you always all do such a great job with these clubhouses. And I said my piece in the group a little bit, but okay. I'm going to get a little emotional, and if I do, I apologize.
No worries.
I love this company. I have an emotional and deep attachment to Peloton. I've been around a long time, not quite as long as Mike, but a long time. And every single day, I am so thankful to Peloton helping me get and stay in remission. And it kills me, and it kills my soul, honestly, to see what's going on with the company right now. And I understand that many out there think that, and it's okay to do, it's fine, we all have different kind of thoughts on things, that I've been negative for like the last 2 or so years about where the company was going, particularly financially and operationally. But it was really more based on a lens of realism and being pragmatic, but also honestly internally struggling with how much I love this company. And the one thing though about Barry is, while I understand he was a CFO, he is now a CEO. He can't be a CFO anymore. He has to be a CEO. And I understand, and going back to the conversation Mike and I were having in the group, and I always appreciate our back and forth, Mike. I totally understand not wanting to divulge a strategy. Trust me, I very well understand art of war and strategic competition. But I still don't know what Barry's vision is. I still don't know what the mission is or the strategic objectives of Peloton within his first 90 days, which can be so telling when new leadership takes the reins of a company or any entity or anything that they're leading. And increasing subs is not a strategy. Marketing in itself is not a strategy. They are inputs into outcome-based strategic objectives and goals. So I understand wanting to increase subs and trying to get to this 100 million sub, but that is a measure of performance. They're number counts. They don't mean anything unless connected to an impact measure.
No, I get you there. I gotta be, yeah, if I'm being really, two comments to what you just said. One,
yeah.
I also am a little unclear as to what the finish line, or at least the vision or goal looks like. Like, I'm not really clear there either. And so I was just kind of assuming it was just me, and then you guys would help me, and you guys would explain it to me.
But let's assume one of us assumes the CEO role. Like 3 months ago, what would you do? Like, you grow fat and happy on COVID pandemic. You had no systems to support, which he alluded to. Actually, what would you do? Like, none of us would have any fucking idea what to do.
Yep.
Sorry for the French.
No, that's
like,
right.
We can all armchair quarterback, but like, Uncle Barry came in to a disaster. This was a sinking ship, and he can't right the ship in 3 months and expect to come in and give, here's my ultimate strategy going forward. Like,
that's not what
he's a CFO.
No, I get that. I get that. I get that, Mike. But to Jackie's point, I'm trying to, and I think I agree with Jackie. Like, I'm trying to. It's not about what he can correct, and how quickly he can correct it. For me, it's like, what does correction look like? Like, where is he intending to go? Is it strictly, I'm trying to get 100 million subs? Is that?
He said that, but he's not the proper MC. I will agree with you all on that. But he's the proper behind-the-scenes operator to get them to free cash flow.
All right.
And that's what I care about.
But
I couldn't care about less about the strategy. Like no one's going to buy a Peloton based upon their strategy.
Yeah, I hear you.
This is all emotional from us internally.
I know it is. And you're right, absolutely right about that. Before I forget, because my mind, I don't know what's up with me these days. Like, it is horrible. Please tell me it's just because I'm just, doing a lot of stuff and therefore my mind is purging. But I keep forgetting.
It's weather in Connecticut, John. It's the weather in Connecticut, I swear. I would do the same thing.
So let me hear
John, it rained here in California.
It actually rained?
I got caught in rain.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared. So first world problems.
I just do want to finish out my thought, if that's okay.
Go ahead, Jackie.
So again, I didn't say that he was going to fix everything in 3 months. I just want to get a better understanding of what it is in his role as CEO that he is trying to do strategically.
Yeah.
Because what is being presented, what is being communicated is very tactical.
Yep.
And I want to know, what is he thinking big picture? Is he a transformative leader? Is he a servant leader? What is his vision? Whether it is so out of the park, unattainable, but what is it? And I don't know.
I think we have parts of that.
I appreciate that. So, from my understanding of Uncle Barry, and I've worked with him briefly, he's going to hold that close to the vest. You're not going to see it until it gets executed. He's not going to be the Adam Newman of WeWork and be out there. So, I know we all want to see this. He's not going to do that. He's not that type of person. He's an old white dude, not to be disparaging, because I'm part of that, but that's not what he's going to do. But I think, I told Evan Blinder, like, look, we got the loan from JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, who led the IPO. Let's let Uncle Barry run his course. And it's been a quarter.
I'm like writing down some questions because I want to come back to that JP Morgan loan with you, Mike, after I bring some of these other folks in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got a question about that. But
there is one more thing, though, I did want to bring up, and it was actually something that Barry McCarthy brought up that I actually agreed with.
Okay.
And it wasn't, I know, shocking, right? But the international market piece, I agree with him on it. So I was overseas last week, and you all know I'm a public health professional by trade. I'm studying for my doctorate in global health and fitness and all that stuff right now. I mean, I love this stuff. I study this stuff from the perspective of population and population health. And The one thing, though, that I kind of thought maybe Peloton was missing the boat on when they kept saying they wanted to move into all these international markets was the differences in health and fitness behaviors in those markets versus the U.S. markets, because they're not the same. They're different. So if you look at Europe, for example, they have the infrastructure to ride and run and such outside. They tend to be more focused to be outside. Spin or being inside may not necessarily be as popular there as it is here in the U.S., where you might have better growth. So if what Barry is doing is to maybe step back and take a deeper look and a deeper understanding into those types of health and fitness related behaviors to those particular markets to better strategize how to go after those markets, then I think that is a good course of action that he's taking.
Yep.
I just want to add something very briefly. Sorry, Stan. It'll take 30 seconds. We talk about going to Europe, going to this. I still talk about they won't be successful until they get Bubba on the bike, until they get Midwest people on the bike, until they get Guy on the bike. I just think that's a huge, rich market in the U.S. And, John, you sent out their commercial recently. The commercial didn't even talk about the app. And I wouldn't say didn't talk about it, but it wasn't the major focus. And everything I ask is it getting more men on the bike?
Yeah, I want to get to that as well. But before we get to that, I don't want to forget these things that I'm like jotting them down. So I'm going to back up a little bit. Uncle Barry said something towards the end of the call about their internal development life cycle. He said something that aligned to kind of speed to market and how their internal kind of software, I would assume, and maybe hardware development, some of the challenges of it. And it sounded as if they had struggles there, Peloton did, before he got there, that just made them inefficient in that life cycle. And I found that extremely interesting because we've been talking for a long while about how we thought that it just seemed, as a technology company, and that's what we kept hearing from John Foley, that we're a technology company. And, I've been working in technology for 30 years, and over the last couple decades, the speed to market around technology has just gotten faster and faster and faster. So it always threw me that they said they were a technology company, yet their speed seemed to be slower than what I would have assumed. And now I hear Uncle Barry saying something similar. So I'm really interested also, just throwing something else out there, on the group's thoughts regarding that. Anyways, Kari, what's going on?
Sorry, John. Just
Sure.
Since I worked with Uncle Barry at Netflix, Barry referenced A/B testing.
Okay.
And they want to be able to A/B test quickly, and they don't have the infrastructure to do that.
Okay.
And that combined with the supply chain issues, the rapid growth of the supply chain and the platform, they were flat-footed. That was their issue.
Right. Okay.
So they need to hire people to help with that.
Yeah.
He made a comment on the call today, like Netflix, we could do this in a day. Spotify, we fixed this, and he'll fix this here. But they need to be able to test new features and functionality quickly.
Right.
And they don't have that. And then the supply chain that Andy Rendich is fixing is, like, I think Uncle Barry said on the call, like, a customer service rep has to look at 12 to 13 screens to address a ticket. Like, I've never seen this in my life, in my career. Like, that's insane.
Right.
Which I guess explains a lot of the customer service, but not to throw XPO under the bus, like a bunch of the customer service issues.
Right. Back to the original point, though, I hear what you're saying with regards to A/B testing, but it still does seem to me that it kind of aligns to what we saw, like that coming out of that gap, right? Like, it feels like he just exposed something that they had a challenge to that we were kind of seeing the result of.
But this is where Uncle Barry, like, I'm frustrated with him on the call. Like, well, once again, art of war. You do not expose your weakness.
Right.
He
did that a bunch of times. He kept doing that. So,
and like, I'm not a big fan of Jill, the CFO, which I think I've been back 2 years in arrears of, but she actually carried him. So I'll refute comments.
She definitely did that. Anyway, what's going on, Kari?
Hey, John. I don't have a ton to add here, and I know maybe we want to potentially jump on some other topics, but I know a lot of people on this call listened to the call this morning, and I see it in the chat with the hard stops. I think that was funny because it felt like the overall, I guess, environment or the call, like you mentioned about the deck and not being so fancy or anything. It wasn't positive at all. It sounded to me like he was almost pissed in a way, or like frustrated with everything, the way he talked about 3PL, and he just didn't sound excited about his company that he's taking over, and it sounded more tactical and like he's just trying to get the things done. And regardless of what anybody says, I feel like he's just telling people hard stop. Don't look. We got to get net positive in fiscal 23, and let's the hard stop. Like it just kept. I was like, wow, what is this dude doing?
Yeah, I picked up on that too. The hard stop, the constant hard stop. Like is that like an alignment to credibility of like now I'm supposed to believe it? I didn't. Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. So anyways, I also agree with the 20% male. I think he said 20% males on the app versus 80% female on the app, and trying to figure out ways to get more guys on the equipment or on the platform. So
right.
I don't know. Either way, it just didn't really sound like there was any strategy. As much as I'd love for the company to be what it was, the way that it was presented in the past, it just doesn't feel that way at this point. And Uncle Barry is absolutely, he is not having it from what it sounds like. And his strategy is going to be to the number one thing that he said in the earnings releases: net positive, cash flow. That's it.
Yeah, I was talking to an analyst friend of mine, and I'm all like, going, wow, I wasn't really feeling, his orator skills, and I don't know, I'm not really feeling Uncle Barry, and he was all positive. So, now I started thinking maybe my kind of layman investor perspective just is seeing, the presentation and missing the detail, maybe it's just me, but anyway, what's going on, Lori?
Not much, John, not much. Well, a lot if you look at our stock, but it's a joke, people. Listen, I think I talked to it last week, and I know, and Mike, yeah, you're right. Are we armchair quarterbacks? Maybe some of us, but not all of us. We happen to own 3 different companies, and, to speak to that directly, I think from our perspective, we're not below $1 million. So we may not be $1 billion, but we're not small by any means. And I think that if you really take a hard look at what's going on, I think, Jackie, you and I talked about it, 3 months ago. This guy was brought in just to hammer down and cut. And yes, are we seeing those cuts and are we seeing the fallout? Wall Street is skittish no matter what right now. You have inflation. You have all sorts of things. I can't tell you what our company has just been through in the last week. And we pivoted and we refocused, and we were able to do that in a very short period of time. So I guess that's my first point. Whether or not you've been there 1 month, 3 months, you came to the job. You told people you could do the job. So you do the job. Whether or not you think you're doing the right thing, you still have to create the perspective for the general market that you know where you're going and why. It's not just about cutting. It's not just about holding it close to the vest. Those that hold it close to the vest lose following. They lose the momentum they may gain in the market. And that's that's been tried and true for years. I think when I talk to hardware, and Mike, I think you mentioned that, I specifically talk to hardware and margins. When you're importing versus making it here, you're still going to see the same margin issues, whether you talk about CAC or CAGR. you have to look at the fact that if you can't present the focus clearly, and you don't do that well in your first 3 months, you risk losing potential investors. So when you have investors and you went out and said, I need a 20% stake, I need this, I need that, when you do that, you have to present them with a clear path, whether that be vision or not. What we can call it vision, we can call it path. But what I think we're missing is a path, and that can be done in 3 months, because if you can cut as many people as you did, then you have a path. You can't hold it close to the vest when you're going from 160 at Foley, then you go down to 70, and now we're down to 12 or 14 or whatever to close. Say, sorry, I was picking my wife up from the airport. And to speak to that, my wife is a tried and true Peloton person. I like Peloton, but it's her game. And I support her 100%. I try different things. I like weightlifting. I like other things. If you can't focus on innovation and putting forward a clear path of what your intentions are, let's not call it vision, because that seems to be kind of a word that kind of sets people off. It's a path. And if you don't have a path in 90 days, then your path forward is questionable. And I think Barry is a good CFO. He did well with Netflix. Look, nobody's bashing him. But to take over as CEO, and you still have John Foley in the mix, I think there's something internally that's going on, and they've lost their path. Their path forward was becoming the visionary, and I'll use the term, fitness, equipment, and connected fitness company in a sea of players. And if you look at everybody's stock, it's down, yes. But to take the drop that it's done, then you have to really take a hard look at why. And when you talk about the Bike Plus, I've said it before, the Bike Plus never should have come out before a rower or some kind of strength-connected fitness, because that's where the market was going. And I think the focus was just a little bit offset. I think we all need to say that we all have different perspectives and nobody's wrong. But in terms of saying that somebody's completely wrong because of what they're saying, I disagree, because Jackie comes in from a Deloitte and Touche days, like we talked about. I come in from working at 3M and owning 3 companies now and leaving corporate and running my companies like corporate doesn't and being very successful doing that. So I don't think we're all armchair quarterbacks in terms of what we're saying, but I think there's a real concern about path forward. And I think if you want investors to invest in your company, you have to have a path. And John, to your point, and this is my last point, that deck, it's a clear indication of the difference between Foley and Barry. And you're going to have Barry who comes in as CFO and says, I'm going to do the elevator speech, 2 minutes. I don't want to have to explain myself. You just have to accept it. Well, that's not how Wall Street works. And especially with everything else going on with importing, China shutting down again, over and over, and worried about supply, taking a hit on your hardware, whether or not everybody agrees with that, and a minus 11% margin is awful. Whether or not it was because of inventory, we didn't bring manufacturing to the States like it was promised, so now you're short. Now China's their people are rioting. I mean, let's be realistic. We don't fully understand the implications of what's going on yet. And then you look at Precor. Well, guess what? Precor should have been a focus 2 years ago. When they bought it, Precor should have been pushed into every gym, every hotel chain. There should have been some type of push to get Precor to a point where you wouldn't have been taking such hits on your hardware, because you would have been gaining your subs. So the point is tonight, everybody's kind of, focusing on whether Barry's right or wrong. It's the path forward that isn't there. And if you don't have a path forward, you don't get investors and your stock doesn't go up. That's the market. And in simple terms, for everybody, that's how a market goes. And so we can't all be armchair quarterbacks, no. But we can, as stockholders, have an opinion. They lost a lot of continuity over the past 2 years, and even 3, when they were riding the wave. They were riding high. And they spent and spent and spent on all the wrong things.
Yeah.
And you know what, Danielle? I agree with you. There should have been a rower 2 years ago. And if you keep giving them excuses and saying, well, now they're borrowing money at a higher rate because of inflation. Well, I don't know. My company borrowed 6 months ago when there wasn't the inflation. So who's smarter now? We're expanding. They're not. They're contracting. So they're going to go through their cyclical contracting, and then maybe next year, maybe in 2023, they'll grow, but that's not a given. I don't think we're ever guaranteed right now that Peloton is ever going to grow again at the rate they did before. That's just me.
I'm going to throw a couple more things out there, and then I'm going to bring Oleg in. I want to make sure I got him in. I heard Uncle Barry talk about the 80-20 split between women and men as members. And when I heard that, I thought, well, when I came into the spin ecosystem, it wasn't because I had ever done an indoor cycling class before. It was simply because Erica was going to a local boutique, and I noticed she was always upset about getting there and she couldn't get a bike, or she had to wake up early to get in line. And I saw this Peloton thing, this ad, and so I bought a bike so she wouldn't have to do that. And I've heard a lot of stories that are similar. So like she brought me in, really, Erica. I then saw, oh, that's fun. And then I got on it. And because other than that, like I wasn't heavy cardio. I mean, I did cardio, but I just kind of ran outside. But I was more core to strength training. So when I hear this 80-20 split, women to men, it makes me wonder, is that because of the fact that Peloton was so focused on indoor cycling and they didn't have as much of a focus on outdoor cycling, as well as strength training, like true strength training, and split training, like the traditional stuff? Is that why there was an 80-20 split? And now it sounds like they're going to be making some attempts to adjust that. And so now I got like these questions about like, what is that relative to their strategy? Do they have to adjust there? Like, what's up with that, right? So let me bring Oleg in.
I'll defer to someone else.
Yeah, let me make sure Oleg gets a chance to speak. I hadn't brought him in yet. What's going on, Oleg?
Hey, John. This is first time I made this call.
I appreciate you coming. And again, you don't have to speak to those questions I just asked. I just throwing it out in the air.
I want to. I want to. So first of all, I want to make a point about Peloton selling hardware directly. Through retailers or just mailing it to you.
Yeah.
Like Mike said, I gave up on waiting for Peloton Roar back in 2019, and I bought the Concept 2.
Yeah.
And the thing came in 2 boxes by UPS 3 days later. And took me, 20 minutes to assemble. It was not like, the way these things come, they're actually pre-assembled. It just comes in like 2 halves, maybe 3 pieces. And, so especially a roller, it's a fairly light machine. I can totally see them just shipping them without involving, XPO or anybody else. But what I want to, before I forget, I keep going back and forth. I have pull things, that I use. I have Zwift. And by the way, I got into Peloton. I mean, I had my own health issues, and Peloton was crucial to me. Like it saved me. And I'm a big fan of the company, and it pains me, just like Jackie, to see these, problems that Peloton is going through. But since getting Peloton, I have multiple things now, because I do like to, to spice things up. They have the best content by far. Like today, I'm thinking, I'm kind of bored with Peloton and I want to do something else tomorrow, but I do have this, intervals class on my list that I need to take, intervals workout, and I can't make up my mind what I want to do with Zwift. But you know what? Here's a class. Here's a recent Hidden Hills from Peloton, I'm just going to do that, because it's so easy to take. If I were and on Apple Fitness, because I just have Apple Fitness as part of the family iCloud subscription, there's none of that. There are classes, and they're all decent quality, but you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're taking. You just kind of like, whatever. I'm just gonna take a class with this type of music. If I were Uncle Barry right now, and my goal is to get subscribers, I would just double down on the app and forget the hardware. I would just turn Peloton into a content company, sell off the inventory that they have. I would even start, doing rowing classes right now. I don't know why they're waiting. They could start delivering rowing classes. The interesting thing with the guide that I keep thinking about, I asked in the group whether it's possible to, view other classes, is that I'm thinking of mounting a screen on my Concept 2 and attaching guide to it, because then it becomes like a Hydro. And Concept 2 has mounts. You can get like things, to attach, whatever you want to it. So I don't know how they're going to solve their inventory problem, but I worry that with these issues, the one thing that's going for them is content, and they're losing sight of that. And there's so much they could do. Like they have access, like the Peloton app has access to my Apple Health. Like I'm an iPhone user, so I can speak to that.
Mm-hmm.
Apple Fitness tells me, because you like outdoor cycling, here's a spin class for you. It's a completely useless recommendation because that class is not for me. But Peloton could do that. Peloton can go look at my workouts already. I'll give them permission. Go for it. Look at it. And say, oh, Oleg, last weekend you went on a 50-mile bike ride. Maybe today you should not be taking that Hidden Hills. Maybe take something else.
Right.
They can do that. And as far as man and women ratio, I don't know, like if I'm speaking for all men, and but probably not, because I'm a weirdo and I'm a giant nerd. And
yeah, me too. It's all good.
Right, but what I like, and the reason I keep going to Matt Wilpers and Christine, and I forgot, like maybe like another couple instructors, is they tell me stories of their conquests. Christine tells me stories about her track, her velodrome, conquest. Matt talks about, Iron Man and Gran Fondo and how he trains through the season. I like to imagine these things, and I like to see a purpose to a workout. I don't like these theme rides where I'm just there listening to music. I can do it by myself,
Yeah.
So give me that. Give me a purpose to my workouts. Allow me to imagine myself as like this, whatever, somebody doing a century bike ride, in the mountains, even though maybe I'll never be able to do it, but training for it and having a goal, so.
Well, now,
yeah, so.
Go ahead, Oleg. I think your perspective there is very interesting. And you articulate it really well. I never thought about it that way, but yeah, broader than just being able to hear a particular genre of music, or the idea of kind of hearing conquests. That's interesting. Like I literally never thought about that.
Zwift does this sometimes. They have these. I think they recorded this podcast, to be honest with you. I don't think they're live. I don't really know how they do it. But basically, you join a group ride. So a bunch of you ride in this game, and you're listening to a Tour de France athlete tell you stories about how they climbed the mount, and then, and Peloton did that with Christian Van de Velde and George Hincapie a while ago. I think between having training plans and bringing athletes like that back in, they could get, I think there is a shot at maybe increasing male audience. So,
that's interesting, and I agree with you. I think there's something there. I think your perspective on what that is, I kind of agree that that's probably one component of it. I also think that there's something in there with regards to their strength training offering as well that has something to do with this as well. So yeah, but it was an interesting statement that Barry made there. That kind of got me thinking. I'm gonna do a quick room reset, and then I'm gonna jump to Tammy, because I know she can't stay too long, and there's a particular topic she wanted to talk about. We can jump into that, and then we could always kind of come back to this. But I just want to make sure we get that in. But this is our midweek wellness chat. Again, this is kind of a special session. We just had the Peloton earnings call, so there's a lot of information and thoughts with regards to where Peloton is and what's going on with them. Generally, these wellness checks have a broader focus. You know, we tend to talk about rides and other competitors, and you know, what classes, how the classes were, and where instructors are doing. So we'll have like serious conversation about the business, but there's also light conversation as well. I just want to make sure you guys, everyone that's in the audience, kind of understands that this one is a little more focused on the business because we just had the earnings call this morning. But if need be, or if anyone's interest, we'll get into other topics as well. It's meant to be, you know, just light, cordial conversation. It's not meant to be, you know, anything too challenging of people to create any animosity or any stress. It's meant to be light and stress-less conversation. So if you want to join the conversation, hit the hand in the lower right of your phone, and we'll bring you right up on stage, and we can talk. You can join the conversation. If that's uncomfortable, don't worry about it. Just kind of throw stuff in the text chat. And that's on the lower left of your phone. Hit that, go to the text chat, throw stuff in there. If you have a question, you don't want to verbalize it, you can store it in there. We'll read it, and we'll jump into it on stage. So I'm gonna because Tammy has limited time, I'm gonna jump into the next topic. Now our last wellness check, which was on Saturday, we were about to start talking about the guide, but we ran out of time. And I don't remember if it was it, I don't know if it was Megan or Anisha. I don't remember who it was, but somebody was like really interested in talking about the guide. And Tammy, I know you were like, yeah, and I want to talk about that too.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I feel like I'm late. Like I let you all down. I just had a late work thing, and now my kid's struggling with his homework. So I apologize. I'm going to try to juggle both of these things at the same time. But I know on Saturday we started to talk a little bit about the guide. I got the guide about a week after Danielle got hers, and Danielle and a lot of people here had glowing reviews. I was excited to get it, excited to try it out. And now it's been maybe just under a month, and I gotta say it's not working that well for me. And it pains me to say that because I have everything Peloton. I'm pro Peloton. I want to love and recommend everything that they put out there. But the issues that I'm having specifically are with the movement tracker, that it's not accurately tracking the movements that I'm doing, and I think that's the big benefit of having it, right, is keeping you accountable for the whole circuit. And mine, like, for example, if it's a 4-minute circuit, the movement tracker will fill up like 2 minutes into the circuit. And I'm like, well, that kind of defeats the purpose, because now I'm just sitting here for 2 minutes. Contacted customer support a bunch of times. They asked me to do a factory reset, send them diagnostic data. They're actually in the process of sending me a replacement one. But today I tried it out. I literally just sat there. I did nothing during the whole circuit. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Nothing. The movement tracker filled up. So I've been kind of asking around quietly, and it seems like it's not new. Other people are a little frustrated with how theirs is working, but a little frustrated that I did pay for this piece of equipment that doesn't perform how it's supposed to, along with the fact that we were kind of promised this exclusive content, and there's a lot of workarounds to get that exclusive content through other avenues. So just kind of wanted to bring it up here for some healthy discussion, and welcome everyone's back.
Well, a couple things really quick before I bring in Lynn and Megan. Your experience seems, different a little than I've heard others. Like I've heard others not happy with the movement tracker, but I've never heard the idea that I don't have to do anything and it's filling up. So then that makes me wonder, is there something wrong with that specific device? Like, I'm not sure.
I was just going to ask her if she could send me hers, because sometimes I'm moving and mine's not tracking. If hers is tracking and she's not moving at all, maybe she could send it to me.
And like I'm wondering, I'm like, there's nothing going on in the background that it's picking up. Like I'm wearing, they tell you to make sure that you're wearing different colored clothes so that you don't blend into the background. Like there's nothing else going on, but I'm like, it's now at the point where it's like it's almost more frustrating for me to use it than to just put the strength content on on my tread tablet, which is right next to it, because I'm just like, what's the point? Like I'm not motivated to continue working through the whole circuit, and I'm too lazy to return it. But it's, I don't know. I don't know that I would recommend it at this point. But we'll see what the replacement product brings. I mean, maybe it's just an isolated incident. I mean, the customer support has been great. They're very happy to try to get it to work and to send out the replacement. But at this point, I'm kind of like, I just don't know if it's something I need in my life.
So, let me bring in Lynn real quick, and then I want to get to Megan, because I know, Megan, you wanted to talk about this. How's it going, Lynn?
Hey, well, if Megan wants to talk about the guide, you can go to her, and then I'll talk after that, because mine's not guide related.
Okay, yeah, I'll bring you back. What's going on, Megan?
Hi. So yes, I wanted to talk about the guide, and I wrote a list because I was like, Danielle's not kicking me off the stage. I'm going to be really efficient. So what I do want to say,
girl.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was like, I'm going to be ready.
I'm trying to give grace today.
Okay. So I really love that I can see myself on screen. That was not a thing that I thought for a second that I needed or would enjoy, but it really did something. It has done something really nice in terms of working out and looking at myself and it being on TV. And I like all the options to minimize and maximize for when I need more, and to also set up I can be below the instructor, or I could be side by side. So I really liked that, and I didn't expect that because I don't think that I had followed any sort of reviews that talked about that. But I am totally with Tammy. I have done 5 or 6 classes, and only in one class has it felt like the movement tracker actually accurately captured my movements. In at least 3 of those classes, I was so worn out and that I stopped moving. I set the weights down and sat down, and the tracker was still filling. And I was sitting. And I wasn't moving while I was sitting either. I was just sitting, and it just kept filling up. And then in another class, I found that the tracker was not moving quickly enough. So you guys might remember me talking about feeling like Peloton classes are so fast. In order to actually fill the tracker, I had to move faster than even the instructor was moving just to get the tracker to pick up. And when I realized this is just completely off and total nonsense, I stopped, and then I didn't fill the tracker, and then that was it. And so I moved through the whole class, and I think there were 19 movements. I filled the tracker 17 times, and you're supposed to get credit bronze, silver, gold based on the percentage. So it's 98% or more of filling the tracker. You get gold, and then whatever percentage silver, whatever percentage bronze. For the 2 classes in which that happened, I got nothing, though I had filled that tracker, and I can't do math. So 17 of 19 times and then 13 of 15 times should have at least given me silver, if not a gold tracker, but it didn't. So that was weird. And at the end it said, sort of 19 over 0. It was just really weird. And it was a class that was meant for the tracker. The tracker was there in the class, but it just didn't work. And then there's the issue of the timer. The timer just is always off. They're 20 seconds to go, but I'm already on rest. So the class, I'm already in the rest phase, and the instructor is still counting down. And that has happened in 5 of the 6 classes that I've taken, and I don't understand why that is.
I think
And I think those are Rexman points.
I was going to chime in and say, the first thing is that maybe it's not counting because the timing is off, and the timing is horrific. I said this to Tammy and John earlier today. The timing is so bad, especially on the live classes. Like, it's really, really off. I found myself following what the screen says versus following what the instructor says, just so that my movement tracker fills properly. Because sometimes it's about 20 seconds behind the instructor. So if I wait that 20 seconds until the instructor is on to the next move, it's physically impossible for me to fill the movement tracker. So I realized that I need to pay attention to the movement tracker, take rest when it's saying take rest, move when it's saying say move, because clearly I know all the moves anyway, and I can take rest when it says take rest. But that's the only way I've been able to fill it up. So you're not the only one. I know I gave it like a glowing review, and I still absolutely love it, but I am having the same issues. But I found, like I said, following the timing on the tracker instead of following the countdown that the instructor gives helps to keep me on track.
So that's what I started doing. But the issue that I have with that is that when you get into, like, when the guide is moving along, so if you're about to move to a new circuit and the instructor is behind you, then, like, I found that it's already starting me on the next set, and the instructor hasn't demoed what's next. So I don't know if you understand what I just said.
I do.
Okay.
And what I found is that 9 out of 10 times, I know what the next move is because they give it to you up there. So, like, they'll tell you that the next AMRAP is going to be snatches, curtsy lunge, and a squat. So I'm like, okay, well, I know all those moves, so I don't have to wait for the demo. So I just go with the timer on the screen versus going with the timer that the instructor is counting down to, which clearly is not ideal, especially if you don't know the moves.
Not for nothing.
You don't know them or you've never done them before,
right.
And they should match up.
Right.
But I honestly,
can't do that, though.
The product should be more seamless than that, though. I mean, whether you're spending $300, $500, $1,000, like, whatever it is, like, get your shit together.
No, I totally agree. And I said the same thing to you guys earlier, that timing with Peloton has been off. If anyone takes a tread boot camp or a bike boot camp, especially the tread boot camps, the timing and the transitions is so far off, it's unreal. Like, I will never PR again until they fix the timing, because they'll have me on the floor and I'm still supposed to be doing a sprint. Like, the instructor's still on the tread sprinting, but according to the timer on my tread, I'm on the floor into the next move.
So here's the challenge for me.
This is an issue across the board.
Yeah, here's the challenge for me with regards to the guide. As I understand it, the intent around the guide is to help, or at least that, what do they call that thing that fills up? I can't remember now. The intent
movement tracker.
Yeah, the movement tracker. The intent around it is to motivate you to continue through those reps to finish that set, right? That's the way I understand it. And for some people, it is a motivational factor to keep you moving so that you get through it. But if that's its core intent, but you can't trust it, then what's the value? And that's what I think I'm hearing from Tammy and from Megan. It's like that's the core intent, like, to help motivate you, because it's telling you, and what you're doing and you're trying to get this thing to fill. But if you're not confident in what that thing is doing, or looking at it, or how it's determining how to fill itself up, and you now have no confidence in it, then their core purpose just was eliminated. Right? That, I think, is a big problem. That's what it feels like.
For sure.
I think it's
you can't introduce, like, someone who's new to strength, and I'm not even new to strength, but I have a terrible memory. So, like, even when it says snatches and lists all the things, I may not remember the movement. So while you might know the movements, I sometimes still have to see it to remember what it is, to remember what it is. And so for someone who is new to strength, who needs to follow, like, that's going to be really tough for them. And I will say, but I do want to say this other one positive, though the timer is off on the split the split strength programs. I did the first class of Robin's 3-day, and the timer was off. Not as bad as it was for the other classes that I've done on the guide, but I worked my ass off. Like the program itself, whether you do it on the guide or you follow the Pillow Buddy links, that is the sort of strength training I've wanted all along, and I do like that.
And I fully agree that they have to do something with that, with the fact that it doesn't show up. Because even if I know the moves, maybe I don't remember them all. Like, so I totally agree with you, Megan, that they have to do better with that. Like, that is definitely a downfall and a flaw. I wonder too, for some people where it's tracking when they're not moving, or if it's tracking, it's missing movement, is what their setup looks like. Because I have kind of a good space. So I think that my space is set up pretty well, and I think that's why it captures mine most of the time. There's a couple times where I'm like, I did that damn burpee. What you mean I ain't do it? Like, don't be cheating me out of burpees.
Yeah.
But, I realize that sometimes it depends on where I'm standing on my mat, that it'll be like, oh, it didn't track it. So I'm curious, like, how everyone's setup is. Is your mat the way they suggest? Do you have the right amount of space? But again, I don't know that it should be that fickle.
I mean, I know
it's
for me,
pretty fickle, I think.
For me, like, I have the guideline specifications. Like, I have a well-lit room. The walls are lightly colored. I wear dark clothes. Like, there's absolute contrast between me and anything in the background. And the other thing that I think also is a little bit frustrating, and I think this is something that they'll eventually fix, is that, there's no way to know for sure when you're scrolling through the on-demand library on the app which classes are going to work with the movement tracker. So I like to stack my classes the night before. Usually when I'm in bed, I scroll through the app, I make a stack of classes, and the only way to know whether or not the strength content is compatible with the movement tracker is you have to be in the guide itself. And that's just kind of a little bit frustrating that not all of the strength content is movement tracker compatible.
So Tammy and Megan, I have a question for both of you. When I was looking at the idea of like tempo or what our prospects and thoughts were around what the guide was going to be able to do, my original thought was, oh my gosh, my form is horrible on all these things. There's all these movements that I know my form is horrible on. And there are reasons it's horrible. But, there's injury reasons. But hopefully the guide can help me with regards to form. And it would be nice to have if it was counting reps for me. That was like the secondary. And then we found out it doesn't really do form correction, other than you can see yourself in the screen. But I don't know. Now I have to kind of compare myself to the instructor, but I guess that solved it. And for me, the rep counting was kind of a secondary thing. What was the primary thing for you two, that you were looking for out of the guide?
I mean, for me personally, I'm pretty good with strength. I do it on my own. I think I have good form. I don't need that, picture-in-picture feedback. I think it was the biggest thing was FOMO, right? That Peloton was going to release something that I wasn't going to have in my house.
Yeah.
And then really, initially I was not going to get it. I did not think that I needed it to augment my strength training. I've actually been eyeing tonal and kind of been back and forth about whether or not getting that. It wasn't until they lowered the price point that I was just like, well, at this point, like $300, I've spent more than that in apparel, on any given sale. Like, what do I have to lose? Like even if I hate it, I'm not going to be terribly upset at my purchase.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know about you, Megan.
I mean, same thing. It was FOMO, and also feeling like if down the line, even if the guide isn't what I fully want right this moment, like if down the line it becomes more like tempo, for instance, then I would sell my tempo and just stick with that. But aside from the fact that I really like the setup on my TV screen, like when I would ordinarily just do a strength class, I would do it right from my bike, or now that I have a tread from the tread screen. But I like that it's on the TV and it's much larger. I have a large flat screen TV, right. So I like that aspect of it. I like being able to see myself, but I just still don't think that the programming is there, and I don't know that I have the right language to say it. I just think that somebody needs to do. Those of you who've never done a tempo program, you have to do a tempo program to get it. It's such a different vibe. Like, it's like, to me, going to the gym, working with the trainer. You are coming to do X class. This is the plan for, however many weeks or however many days that are in the program, and that's just it. You're not getting the personality and family community feel that you're getting from Peloton instructors, and I love that. I love being a part of that. But like, strength is a very different animal on tempo. And I don't think, and I thought about this the other night when I was thinking about this conversation tonight, could any of the tempo instructors fit in at Peloton? And I thought to myself, there's only one who I think has a silly enough personality that comes through that could actually fit. The rest of them, I would not say would be folks that I would want to hire at Peloton. And so it's just a totally different vibe. Like, they're just coming to get you strong. They're coming to help you lift, and that's it.
Yeah, Ali Orati, the CEO of Tonal, and by the way, he's a part of our Run, Lift, and Live group, if you guys didn't know that. But the CEO of Tonal, he did an interview a few months ago, and he was like really direct in saying that, we're not here to entertain. Like, we're into results, right? Like, so I don't know if that was like his marketing kind of response, or if as in the space how we compete against the other players are doing strength, or if that's just truly what it is. But when I listen to what you're saying, it sounds like it, right? Like, they're really focused on the movements. They're really focused on what you need to do strength training, and thus the instructors don't have the same type of, sounds like, personality and outward kind of messaging that you hear from a Peloton instructor.
Yeah, it's not the friendly. Like, there's a corny joke or two. There's motivation, but it feels more or less like you walk into a gym, the trainer you've been working with, you have a little bit of small talk, and you just get right down to work. And maybe it's like, hey, what are you going to do this weekend? And like, it's that, but it's not the like. Jess isn't telling you get to, like, they're not motivating you heavily. They're not, you're not in the confessional with Tunde. Like, it's not that sort of vibe. And I wanted to say one other thing, but now I lost it. So, oh well.
No worries. So, I mean, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm curious if anyone other than myself has taken the roll call classes and what they think of those and what Peloton is doing, because from a strength perspective, they kind of laid out a whole training program for you in the week. So I'm curious what other people have thought about it, if anyone else has taken it.
I did. I've taken it despite my my delinquent movement tracker. I actually really like it. I think it's a nice variety of people. Like, they all kind of have a little bit of a different strength approach. Like, some are very traditional strength and some are more circuit and AMRAP based. Like, I definitely got exposed to Jermaine and Callie and people that like I usually don't take. I like that it takes the guesswork out. It's pretty. The first week, I think, it was only 20-minute classes, which, I mean, it's really easy to fit 20 minutes in your day. I love it. Do I need my guide to do it? No. I mean, I can do it on my own. But I've been happy with it.
Anyone else take the roll call classes? Yeah, I assume that those that took those would probably like those as well. I'm like a little just iffy with regards to Peloton strength in general. Not that it's not effective. Like you guys know I've said this before. In the past, it tended to have like a mix of like strength and cardio in the many classes that I had taken, so that my work is very delineated and deliberate. So I don't tend to like to mix like boot camp based like cardio while I'm doing strength. That's like how I've gotten injured in the past. Speed and strength training don't mix for me. So I like the delineation. So then I never really did it, but I know that now the newer classes with the split training and kind of are starting to move Peloton into that direction. But I'm still a little light on my opinion with regards to Peloton strength and the guide, and hearing the responses with regards to it. I'm not sure about either. I don't know. Jury's still out.
Hey, John, to the point.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Go ahead, Megan. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I remembered what I was going to say. I ultimately don't feel like I necessarily need the guide. I just, similar to Tammy, I just don't know that I'm going to package it up and send it back before the 30 days because I'm just lazy like that.
Yeah, and I was like you, by the way, Megan and Tammy, thinking that there's opportunity here, and they can just push updates to it, and at some point in the future, it may do or have more ability and capabilities that we just don't see yet. And so, but I wasn't really willing to invest yet. But I have that same perspective. Like I hear you there. What's going on, Lori?
No, I was actually just going to agree. I think we have both the move and the guide. Megan, I think I put it in the chat. You actually talked me into just talking about it, the move, and I am blown away. It's sets, it's work to failure, it's everything you want it to be. It tells you what it thinks you should do from an AI perspective as weights. But if I have a day where I haven't eaten well the day before and I'm not hydrated enough, I'll just use half of what they're expecting. But the fact that it senses it and then reprograms itself was important to me. But I think in terms of being able to pick the music was a huge thing. But they're straightforward. They're like, look, there's your form. Here's how you do it. Yeah, maybe we don't get the corrections that the whole studio setup does, but we're starting to get more and more. And I think the content, the live content, and the acclimation to more of a weight-based training, my sister's more of the ilk of Peloton and complexes. I find, and John, I'll agree with you, I've injured my back, I have 2 bad knees, complexes to me are exactly that, speed. And when you're putting speed into weightlifting, you're not focusing on form. At least I'm not. So I'm not saying you, I'm saying me, in terms of true weightlifting, which is where I came from. And I'll admit, I don't use the bike as much as I used to. I mean, I used to be an avid on the bike all the time, and then I hurt my back, and then my form was off. I went and got fitted. That didn't feel right. And I'm not paying for a Matt Wilpers fit. Sorry, not sorry. I went to my local bike shop. They fit me on my road bike. But I think that, overall, I think the guide has a true niche, and I think it will come into its own, regardless of what I'm saying about the company. I think the guide was a good idea. I think it was just a little bit late to the party. But in terms of bringing new people onto Peloton with the guide, I will tell you, my sister loves it, and she's not a strength person.
Wow.
So I think that perspective is that the guide, and I think Danielle, you said this in the comments, it's more Andy's more of a beginner person, and yet my wife will work out to Danielle, who kills her. I mean, she'll come in after a workout and be like, I won't be able to move tomorrow, and she works out every day for at least an hour to 2 hours a day. So she does both. She's the hardcore on the floor person. I mean, I can't even ever match her workouts. So I think that if you look at the whole connected fitness, there is a niche for everybody, and I think Peloton has done a good thing with the guide. And again, wow, I said a good thing about Peloton lately, but I think that if they market to that, they're going to bring in the newer people that aren't the people that are going to the Move or the Tonal, and they're not willing to spend to get something mounted to a wall. And John, you can speak to that with the Tonal with Erica. I mean, that's a big thing. You have to have the room, you have to have the studs, you have to have the ability to mount it to an existing wall. It's not like it's like mounting a free floating toilet to a wall. You can't just do that. It's 600 pounds.
Right.
you know, and I laugh about that analogy, but that's what my wife and I talked about. That's why we didn't get the tonal. We moved into a home that doesn't have the structure to be able to do that. And I'm not willing to tear apart walls to do that either. But I went to the move because Megan spoke so highly of it. And I'll tell you what, I have seen gains in the past month that I haven't seen with 4 weeks of a strength program with Andy. But my sister is seeing gains in terms of coming into strength training new with the guide. So I think that, you know, everything has its niche.
Right.
I hope every instructor has its niche, right? I don't like to preach either. I think we were talking about that in the chat. I used to love Christine. Now I'm tired of it. I get what you're saying, but I don't need to hear how much you were a ballerina or you wanted to be and your thighs are big. I've heard that for 6 years. I think that people kind of lose if you keep repeating the same story over and over. It's not motivational anymore.
You know what I love? I said this to Danielle a few days ago. It's like I love the brute honesty, because to me, the honesty is the path to support. Like, so, you know, like if I'm gonna say everything that Peloton does comes up gold because I'm a fanatic, which I am, then I feel like I'm shortchanging them when there's something that is not something that I'm in agreement with or I don't quite like. Because if I told them the truth, then maybe they'll hear me, and then there'll be enough voices for them to then change it. And so then I actually am much more supportive of them when I'm truthful. Right? And so when I hear, I'm a fan of, like, we all love this product, we all love this platform, but when I just hear the brute honesty, I'm like happy to hear that.
I'm not being mean, John.
That's my point. That's my point. It's not being mean. It's like it's just the truth.
If you can hear Amy laughing in the background right now, because I was the Christine fan and fanatic, and then it just got to a point where it was overdone. But for new people, it's not. So I get that people join her rides that have cancer and are fighting the fight and going through. But I think we all need to realize that there are some instructors that will fall out that we don't like anymore. Then we'll go to a different one. Amy used to love, you know, Callie. Callie's actually, she annoyed the hell out of me, but she's brutal with abs. I mean, I don't know if any of you have taken her yet, but man, she is brutal with abs. She may laugh and look nice. She's not nice. And Danielle may laugh.
I was going to say, I'm really selective about who I recommend, and I've recommended several of Callie's classes for abs.
I'm going to have to take some of these Callie ab classes.
She's a killer.
She's insane, and like I've bookmarked them, and like the people that know me know that I'm a ride or die for Jess, Robin, Allie. Like those are my people. So for me to I took Callie because it was like on, I don't know, maybe it was the live class or something for the roll call, and she killed me. And then I tried another one, and she killed me again. And I was like, ooh. Okay.
Amy is literally laughing in the background as you're talking because she's the one that was like, you need to try Callie. I'm like, nope, she annoys me. And I'm like, she goes, you need to try Callie. And I'm like, the next day I'm like, I can't move.
Heather in the chat called her Killer Callie.
Lori, if I can caveat,
I could do without her dance moves though, but her abs are insane.
That's crazy. Go ahead, Jackie.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say to Lori, you had brought up, so just real quick, like CDE. I mean, CDE is my girl. Right. I mean, 7 years strong with her. And sometimes for me personally, I still need to hear, and many people are like this, right? Sometimes if I'm having a bad day or if my joints really hurt or if I'm having a hard time keeping my consistency, personally for me, like in the winter when I tend to get bad swelling, sometimes rehearing those words helps me kind of keep the consistency. I know that's not always necessarily the same for everybody, but I think that's where as the new members that come into Peloton and start to become longer time members, like so many of us here, where they start to feel like they have those connections with the instructor that no matter if they even keep repeating a story or a mantra, it helps them also to keep coming back. So I think there's a flip side to that as well. But I was going to also recommend, if you haven't tried Ben Aldis's strength classes. I mean, as you know, with my joints, with my knees and my ankles and wrists and everything else, it's a mess. His classes I have found to be very clean, simple moves. And they usually tend to be the same, similar types of moves, and they don't get very complex. And I have found, especially with my knees, that I have had really, really great success with his classes. He goes at a bit of a slower, but not too slow, bit of at a slower pace. He does very clean circuits, and I have found that I have had less pressure on my joints. So if you haven't tried his classes, I would recommend them if those are things that you contend with.
I love Ben.
Hey, Jackie, John, if you don't mind. Hey, Jackie, I totally agree with you. I own her necklace. My wife bought it for me as a surprise. I did her workshops. I totally agree with you, and that's my point. And I think we often overlook that there's certain instructors that resonate with people. And even though I fell out of it for personal reasons in terms of resonation, there's others, and I get it, that I still talk to that are part of the CDE tribe, and I totally get where her words are coming from. My personality is I have a short attention span, so that's on me, and I totally agree with you. I am happy, and here's what I'm going to say about Peloton's strength, is that they work to the people. Their instructors hit every portion of the people, right? So Jackie, you resonate with somebody. I may fall out and resonate with somebody else, and I may switch around. But I think that's, and we talked about this before, that's the passion, right? That's the vision. Yeah. And that's what we're missing. So Jackie, I totally get you, and I'm fully supportive. We all go to where we need to, and I think that's totally awesome.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of it. Before we continue on to that, I want to make sure I bring in Amy and Jamala, and then I want to get back to Lynn's topic as well. So I'm going to keep it moving and bring in Amy. What's going on, Amy?
Hey, John, what's going on? I had so many things that I wanted to touch on, and I got to mentally go through them in my head.
No worries.
One, tonal is not that hard to install. I installed it on a very thin wall. I had a handyman, not even a builder, come over. He charged me $100 to put in this structure. They have it on Tonal's website, exactly what to put in. So for $100, you can really put it anywhere. Does it look cute? No. I could do a build out and make it all look cute, but I don't really care. I just wanted it. So that's one thing. So you really don't need the space and the infrastructure that you think you do if you're willing to figure it out. But the other thing I will say is, that I don't think that Peloton does cater to everyone for strength. It does not cater to me. I've tried for years to get into it, and it's not for me. I've been lifting since I was about 15 years old, and it's just not for me. I don't like the fast. It just seems chaotic and just to burn calories for calories' sake. And I know that they're doing the split programming now and all that, but it just, I don't know. It's not my jam.
Amy,
I've said before. Go ahead.
You're just like me, Amy. You sound like we sound like twins. That's me too. Like I've been, lifting since I was 15 as well, and I have never been able to get into any of Peloton's strength offerings. And I don't.
Literally, I have tried. I mean, I have been part of this community for a while now.
Yeah.
And I have FOMO like everyone else. I mean,
right.
I don't want to miss out on what everyone else in the community is doing.
Right.
I tried the hardcore calendar. I've tried all the different, Maddie did an ab, month of February, do his ab core classes. Yeah. I've tried it all. I cannot, it's not for me.
Yeah.
And like I said, John and I have been back and forth a little bit on the tonal, and it took me a full year to get into the tonal because it was kind of the same thing. I'm used to being in a gym, and I had my squat rack and my bench and all that stuff.
Right.
I've found my groove with tonal, and what it is, and I've said it. I think I tagged John in a post about it. But the difference between Peloton and tonal is that, or something like tonal, maybe tempo is similar, is that in tonal you get a personal trainer.
Yep.
In Peloton, you're doing group fitness. You are a member of a group fitness class, so you could be doing jazzercise for or a step class or whatever. There's no individual training, and totally you don't get the stories, and you don't get the, the rah-rah. You would never know, that one of them was a ballerina. Or you just don't get the backstory. They just tell you what to do. They tell you how to do it. You play your own music, and it's definitely comes at a cost.
Right.
Financially as well, and I said in the chat, and the cost also is that I've had to back out of the Peloton community. And that was really hard for me to do, and I think it's what took me a year to finally transition. And I was like, you know what, I just got to cut my losses and move on for what's right for me.
Right.
So anyhow, that was kind of my 2 cents with that. But this has been such a great discussion.
No, I appreciate you joining. I appreciate all the words that you said. And I think that's the beauty of a lot of these platforms and what they offer. I think that some are for some and others are for others. And so, yeah, I haven't been able to get into Peloton Strength. I haven't been able to get into the tonal either. Although Erica has. Erica's like into the tonal now. I got up this morning and I walked in there and she's doing like a tonal class. So like she's all into it now, but I've never been able to get into that.
So I feel like she's on my trajectory because you guys have had it about a year. And it took me, I've had it now 18 months or whatever. It took me a full year to get into it.
Right.
But once I committed, I was like, okay, now I get it.
Right.
I need to let the Peloton go. I don't need to do all of those classes just for the sake of ticking a box. I need to actually come up with a program that works for me and is going to benefit my body and my health, not just because everyone else is doing it. Right. So anyway, there's a lot out there, and it doesn't have to be, I don't know. I mean, do we wish Peloton could be everything for everyone? Yeah, but the reality is, it does not have that capacity.
Well, my question for Peloton with regards to Peloton Strength is, does their offering and the guide, maybe they don't need a hardware offering, maybe they don't need a guide, but does their content and their hardware provide enough of a capability and capabilities and need to fit into what we're talking about, where there's this niche audience that likes that over the tempo, and there's another niche. I
don't think so.
Does it have
I don't think so either. Even with the split programming, which is really good compared to like just the straight strength classes, because they're doing a lot of, they're taking a lot of guesswork out of it for you, and they're not as fast paced as some of the other classes. They tend to be a little bit slower. But I don't know that they really hit that person who is just like a lifting person. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you have your program, John, and you know what you want to do, and that's the way Paul is. When Paul's lifting, he goes in the gym and he knows what he's doing, and he's got his regimen laid out.
Right.
He's never going to do a Peloton strength class.
Right.
Like it's never going to happen.
I understand Paul.
And I don't think
it's interesting because I waited and waited and waited for Peloton. I did not jump on tonal when I wanted to, because I thought, I don't want to pay the dual membership and blah, blah, blah. And I'm so glad I made the plunge and didn't wait, because you know what? The guide would never fulfill what I need in strength. And so I think unless they can come up with a real like magnetic weight component kind of thing that's not group fitness, it's got to be different.
Yeah.
It won't do it for me.
All right, let me bring Jamala in. What's going on, Jamala?
Hi. So I think I might be that person that it appeals to more, because I was very reluctant about getting the guide. I have the bike and the tread, and I'm still not totally sold on the tread, but when Danielle was giving such glowing reviews to the guide the other day, it made me, kind of think about it, get a little bit of an inkling, but I was still like, I'm not going to pay $300 for this. But when there was the glitch, I got it for the 145 with the mat, and now I'm forgetting what the other thing we got with it was. But anyway, for that really good price. And, I feel like it's worth it for the price that I paid. And, I am not a heavy lifter, and, I'm more concentrated on, running as like my main sport, and, riding the bike was always like my, cross training for running. And then lifting, I wanted to do lifting to support my running.
Right.
And so, but I always felt like really aimless with the Peloton stuff. And so, I've done hardcore calendar, for a couple of years and like that, but that could get overwhelming with the other stuff that you want to do. And so I'm like really, I've only done a few things on the guide so far, but I'm really looking forward to this like program, like the roll call thing that we were talking about, or the split programs and stuff,
right,
as a point of direction for me, instead of just like, I don't know, I'll just pick whatever I want to do today.
But is it more, Jamal, is it more about that content, or is there specifics with regards to the capabilities of the guide that you're interested?
Well, I do, like I said in the chat, I do really like the gamification aspect of it. I'm someone who likes to get the blue dot every day and likes to, I'm not super big on the badges, but, I do like to, get the monthly badges and stuff and all of that. And so I do like, seeing yourself up on the screen and seeing the little, movement tracker fill up and everything. And I've had success with it actually following me and working. And I'm not actually in that well lit of a room or anything, but, so I do think the guide has that, but I will say, like, my remote doesn't work with the volume. It says my TV's not compatible. I have a newer TV, so I don't know why. Like my split view, I can't get, when it's in the up and down view, I can't get like the other stuff to show on the side like it's supposed to. You can't high five people on there, but they show you who's in class. So I think that's kind of silly. And so, there's a lot more that they could do that they're not doing. Plus, like, the biggest thing that I think they're just like leaving money on the table is that you can only see that a class is a movement tracker class when you're in the guide. It only shows that little teardrop in the corner of the class when you're in the guide. When you're looking in the app or you're looking on other equipment that you have, it doesn't show that. So you can't be like, oh, I'm going to schedule my class for later and I know it's a movement tracker class, because people who don't have the guide then would see the catalog of movement tracker classes and then get the FOMO and be like, oh, I'm going to add it or whatever,
right.
But they're, so I don't know why Peloton doesn't think of these things like to, pull people in from different, like, it just seems so easy to do that, to like, pull people in. So, but, I was very reluctant about getting it, but, I'm pleasantly surprised for the amount that I paid that, that I think that it will have some utility for me with the helping plan stuff. And I've kind of like, since I've got it, I have kind of left my hardcore stuff to the side and been doing the guide stuff.
That's awesome. I'm really interested in seeing, what Peloton reports with regards to, sales of the guide in their, what would be fiscal Q4 earnings call. So I'm really interested in what because that'll be the first time we'll hear more about it. So, and I'm also interested in, what they start adding to it, because I don't have a clear, like we talked about this niche, like where the things that tempo align to and the things that tonal align to, and the particular people that are going to like that content and that style and those products. And I'm not as clear with the guide, the people that are going to jump there. Like I know a person that doesn't want to pay for another subscription is probably going to go there. And this idea that you might be getting content that others don't get, I get that person might go there. But if I'm just thinking about people that are doing strength and who are those that would align to the capabilities that come out of the guide, I'm not as clear there yet. So, as they start to...
John?
Yeah, go
that
ahead.
was another reason why I got the guide too, versus like, I think the tempo looks really cool, and so does the tonal and everything. And I've mentioned before that I've used iFit and had a sub for that, but I find like the more subs that I have, the more distracted I am, and I can't just like spread myself so thin amongst all these different apps. Otherwise, I just lose focus.
That makes a lot of sense.
It was easy. Yeah, it was easier for me to stay in the same ecosystem. And like somebody else, I think it was Tammy, who said, I was like, with the glitch price, if I don't like it, I probably spent that much on apparel. So,
right.
You know.
Maybe that's the scenario. Go ahead, Danielle.
Jamila, I was just going to say my volume didn't work either on my controller, and then I had to like restart my system, and then it worked. I was getting the same message that said it wasn't compatible, and then I had to restart it, and then it worked. So maybe try restarting yours.
I'll try that. Can you get it to where, like, I can only get, like, the movement tracker and, like, showing the movements coming, the ones that, you know, are coming, and the little who's in the class. When you are, like, the little small picture and the instructor is the big picture, I can't get, like, the view where it's up and down, you know, where you're, like, it's supposed to be where you could be on the top and the instructor on the bottom, or vice versa, and you can see that other side tabs. Have you tried that and been able to get that?
Yeah, I can see the people who are in the class. I can't see the moves when I'm on the top. And I also found that when I did that, where the picture of me was bigger, that it didn't track my movements as well. Because I felt like it was missing part of the mat. So anytime I went to the floor, it seemed to like miss things. So I found it was better if I stayed in the smaller box to the side.
Okay. Yes, surprisingly, my camera lens is like really, it's almost like a fisheye or something. It's like pretty big for the room that I'm in. I'm in a pretty big room that's maybe like 40 feet by like, 15 feet, and it grabs the whole 15 feet.
Yeah, it gets a lot in my room. As I talked about the last time, it gets like my pole from my face.
Let's not start on that pole again.
But like it gets my boxing bag, like you can see my whole weight set behind me. Like it gets the whole lot of the room. But it just seems to be that when I'm on that split screen like that, where it's me on the top, that it doesn't seem to get to the floor. Like it's supposed to do that zoom in, zoom out thing. And it doesn't seem to get the floor. So I stopped using it that way. Because it was fine for everything else. But as soon as I went down for like push-ups or crunches or something, then it seemed like it was kind of like hit or miss.
Hey, Chris, you were going to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you were talking about getting numbers for the guide, do you think they're actually going to split out numbers and give us a real solid number? Because they don't really have a history of doing that with any, units. It's usually just the overall dollars sold from hardware.
That is a very good point. No, I don't think they will, but I do think that the analysts will ask that question. So,
sure, and they'll say, I don't know.
Right. So we may not get anything. I think that if it's a positive thing and it can be relayed as something that is helpful to them, then we will hear something. But otherwise, you're right. It'll just re-roll into a connected fitness sub. Yeah, we may not hear anything, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm patiently waiting to see. But anyway, I know we only have 7 more minutes, and I really want to get to Lynn. I feel horrible for having you wait, Lynn, especially since I've been. A lot of you guys know I've been working for the past year and trying to get a marker replaced in Wethersfield, Connecticut, that is honoring a slave who died in 1834, and I started to get some success with the city of Wethersfield, Connecticut, and the Historical Society of Wethersfield, Connecticut. I mean, it took forever. It took a petition. It took me like emailing people forever, and finally they were like, okay, we think we will do it, but we're trying to figure out how to raise funds. So I then asked everyone in my group, and within 5 hours we raised all the funds. So, and Lynn, I saw that you donated, and thank you so much for that. So that's just another reason I feel horrible that I had you waiting. So, so I know you wanted to jump to a different topic, one of the ones we were talking about earlier. So yeah, let's jump to that.
Well, I was going to commend you on all of that amazingly hard work. I have some ties to Connecticut. I actually went to UConn for my master's,
awesome.
and when my grandparents immigrated to the U.S., they actually lived in Waterford, Connecticut for a brief period of time before going back to the U.K. So my great-grandfather is buried there. So I've been thrilled to follow all of your work, and I'm so excited by it. And it's been amazing. And I think, if you're not writing a book already, you should definitely consider it, especially with all of the recent trip to Texas. And the story that you shared there was really just amazing. So thanks for bringing that light to everything along with Peloton.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So this might actually sort of bring it all together while simultaneously bringing up an agenda item that did come up briefly in the chat, which is, we've talked a lot about what's unique about Peloton? What does Peloton need to be doing to sell people? Is it, how do you bring in men? How do you bring in the Midwest? Whatever it might be. And why did each of us get drawn to a certain instructor or a program or an idea or something else? And how do we find our niche? Well, the commercial I saw was one of the agenda items, and I immediately loved it. I thought it was hysterical because if if you're in the Peloton community, Cody Rigsby's recent, the idea of the, turn heads like a sizzling thing of fajitas in a Chili's on a Friday night.
Right.
I don't know that I've ever been in a Chili's on a Friday night, but I had a visceral reaction to that statement and knew exactly what that meant. And so seeing that in a commercial was just hysterical. I was like, yes, that's so funny. And Adrian, I'll run through a brick wall. Sure. Whatever you say, dude. But I know Adrian, I have that relationship. I know Cody's kind of goofy and has that relationship. I know, Jess and all of them. And so I have that impression when entering that commercial. And so stepping back in that sort of way of critiquing Peloton, one of the things I really think they're missing is selling that unique way that multiple people can tie in.
Yeah.
Laurie can be a CDE fan forever, own the necklace, still know every story about dance, ballet, thighs, pants sizes,
right.
But also have been able to move on. Jackie can be committed for forever. Amy can be doing 2 different platforms. Danielle can run every, social media group and wear every Ally Love, piece of gear out in the community. I hop between instructors like nobody's business. Depends on the week who I really need. And I was on vacation for the past 2 weeks and I had literal FOMO. The idea that I missed Jess King's announcement, I got on her live while sitting on the beach because I was like, I need to hear more about this. I don't think that's something that Peloton is able to sell right now. And so whether they sell the bike in a Target or a Walmart or, a third party Nordstrom's or wherever else, that exclusivity isn't where the bike is sold or the store, which it might have been in the past. It is now that relationship in that community and the ability to build your own platform and your own experience and your own relationships. And even though they're parasocial relationships, I do think I rode the Jess King ride tonight where she announced her house ride, and knowing what she was going to announce at the end made that ride even more special because of her reaction to every song, every lyric, her shout outs to her family, her being I'm encompassed by love. She spoke of ancestry and all that other stuff that really impacts her. And so I just think that's something that they're not conveying until you're in it. And that's not a very good marketing strategy to be you need to be part of it to understand why you should be part of it.
Right.
So I hope that's something that maybe they can figure out a way. And it makes me think of something that Clip Out Crystal always says, which is, I've seen a lot on pages and has come up there in your conversations is, are they taking care of the long-term members or are they just after the next fish? And a lot of long-term members don't feel as though they've been respected or taken care of, and how that's changed with homecoming and everything else. I'm wondering if there's a way to combine these 2 ideas of helping media or marketing strategies like they've done in some cases, inside social media stories of having people tell their stories and why they got, obsessed with an instructor, or even that one where they had people meet their instructor. I just don't think they're showing the special sauce in the most effective way. I don't know a better way of saying that, but as we've all talked tonight, everybody has their reasons, but I didn't join because I would have expected to have FOMO over missing someone's pregnancy announcement that I didn't know 3 years ago.
Right. I think that is so well stated. Yeah, but that is such a tough thing in my mind. So when I was saying earlier in the group, I got the bike for Erica, but no one would have been able to explain this dynamic that you're talking about to me that I know of. I can't think of a way they would have been able to explain that to me outside of me experiencing it. So to me, that is the $100,000 question. Like, how do you create an ad campaign or a marketing plan that gets a person who's not in the ecosystem, who's not a member, to feel that and thus then decide to purchase and become a sub? Like, how do you do that? When I saw that the new ad campaign, it resonated with me. But I'm already in the ecosystem. So I hear everything you're saying. Like, yeah, I agree with you. Like, maybe it is the, like you said, those where the individuals meet their instructor, or some stories of folks in the community. I don't know what it is. I have no idea what it is. I'm not sure if that ad campaign is it, but it was entertaining to me as a person that's already in the community. But yeah, I'm looking for them to put something out that articulates, translates that in a way that draws those that aren't already here in. And I don't know what that is.
Hey, John.
I think they're going to have to tap the community more.
You think?
I think they've used them for. I think so. I think they've used them for one commercial before.
Yeah.
Where someone, they had a couple people tell their stories. Actually, maybe they did 2 different campaigns where they had actual writers kind of tell their story. But I think they're going to have to use that a little bit more than what they're doing. Because this new ad, it's definitely funny. And it does show the different personalities that you'll encounter, within the instructor group. But you're not going to necessarily get the inside stuff if you're not already inside.
Right.
You're not going to get the Cody jokes if you don't know Cody.
Right.
Like, you're just gonna be like, who is this dude and what the hell is he talking about? Sizzle what? Like,
yeah.
It's not quite as funny if you don't know who Cody is. I found it hilarious, and that was my favorite part of the whole commercial. But I just don't know that other people are going to get it. So I think that, honestly, they're going to have to tap the community and get the people's stories out there who have been impacted by Peloton.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Go ahead, Lori.
It's funny that, Danielle, you just said that, because as we're on mute and in our living room, we were just talking about, like, the path, right? So what brought us all together, whether we agree, disagree, find common ground, or don't. John, you were able to create this common core group off of where they go through the norming, forming, storming. I mean, we're following that path, right, as a group. Right. And if you look at it, what created that? And as much as I rail against Peloton and Barry and Foley and what has kind of happened in the past 2 years, I was just saying to Marcos, actually, that we all traveled the same path with different avenues. There's always branch offs of who you find to resonate with you at some point. I will go back to that. CD really resonated when my dad passed.
Yeah.
And as I moved forward into restructuring our business a little bit with my wife and kind of going through that, there were some other things that I just needed to have come into play, which is like, get your butt into gear, get off your butt, get out of the chair, and get out and work out. So, but I think sometimes the noise of the stock and the noise of what's happened in the past 2 years has taken over, and Wall Street is only going to see the noise. They're not going to see us. Right. And I think that we all traveled the same path to get to a point where, on a Tuesday night, we're all sitting here discussing, like, what brought us together and what didn't, what we like, what we don't like. But a true testament to you, John, for starting this. I've been in other groups of Peloton where you had, what was the name of that group? That was, what was the name that we were in? I don't know. It was that whole thing with the guy on the vacuum and the.
Oh, yeah.
What was the name of that? Swexy Swarm.
Swexy, yeah. Swarm.
And that was short-lived, right? Because that was more based on notoriety, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it was based on, there's still people that are in that group and believe in it. But I think that I've grown more towards real connections with Peloton versus, kind of being in a group and infamous versus being in a group and being accepted, and we all can have a different opinion and move forward. And I think, John, you have done the best. And Amy and I have been in a wide number of groups, not all of them, but I think you, as a testament to you, have done the best and Danielle and Tammy too. Listen, you guys have done the best in bringing Clubhouse and bringing it to us. I didn't even know what it was. And allowing us to speak our opinion in a good format where it's not just Peloton, it's industry-wide, but everybody can have a different way or path, but we still kind of converge back onto we're all freaking Peloton addicts, and we love it, we hate it, and we're going to get there, and we just hope it continues. So I just kudos to you, because I think tonight has been kind of rough sometimes, and I think that, you know, everybody's very high-spirited when it comes to what they love and what they don't, or what they can't do and what they can in terms of what is offered. But I really think that the path, and I think that goes back to Barry, we need a path from him. But I think you guys, all three of you, in terms of this Clubhouse, thank you, because it gives us a path.
I appreciate that, Lori. And by the way, same with Lynn and yourself and all that donated to my, you know, my effort with regards to the Wethersfield City and Historical Society. Thank you all. I just want to make sure I say that again to everyone who donated, not just Lynn.
John, I will say one thing. I don't think it should be an effort. It's a responsibility. And you're just bringing to light what we should have known years ago that was never taught in history books. So again, on that matter, you know how I feel about that. We've talked about that, but I'm just blown away. So on all fronts.
Well, I appreciate it. I just want to say that, and thank you for the compliments to Danielle and Tammy and myself. And you know, my position is it's more about people and relationships, and I just like open discussion, and just the honesty and just the relationship part and the energy part. So that's my whole focus. So hopefully everybody else kind of feels that and it resonates, and we can kind of enjoy, you know, that aspect of being a part of a community. But cool.
John?
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention really fast that I saw it posted in Hardcore today, but I also saw like Pelotinos and a few other groups were on this list for homecoming, where I don't know if you guys remember, in like the other virtual homecomings that they had, where they had those opportunities where you could chat with someone or chat in a group,
right.
You know? And so I saw a list today. It's like a 2-page list where they just have like random of the Peloton groups, like I said, groups that I was in, like Pelotinos and Hardcore and stuff were on there. But like You Get To Crew was not on there, which I'm also in. Spearheads, another group I'm in, is not on there. But they had like Irish Yanks and a few other ones that I don't know why they chose the groups that they did, but it appears that they're setting up to have a kind of chat forum for those groups to meet virtually during homecoming.
I've seen them do that before. I'm not clear on, I think they did that last homecoming or the one prior. I can't remember. I've seen that before. I don't know how they make those selections. I'm not really sure. I'm sure there's some specific reasoning behind it.
Yeah, Danielle, why aren't You Get To Crew on there?
I have no idea. I'm a moderator for BGM, which is Black Girl Magic, the Peloton edition, and I had no idea that this was happening until I saw the email. So I have no idea how they pick groups. You Get To Crew isn't on there. They also missed Love Squad. Like, Love Squad is a pretty big group. I don't think Boo Crew is on there.
I think maybe they're trying to highlight. I mean, it could just be, they're trying to highlight, and it's more aligning to something they're trying to market or support, or a particular instructor, or I don't know, or it could be something broader than that. Maybe that's why.
But speaking of like the marketing that we were talking about earlier, with instead of instructors, they could put, and maybe instead of individuals, they could also highlight groups like that too. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. You were going to say, Chris?
I was just going to clarify for anyone who hadn't seen it yet. Like, I think anyone can hop on at any point. They were just trying to set up like hey, why don't a bunch of your group get on this time, and there's a bigger chance you'll be matched up with someone from your group if you're all on at the same time.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, that adds up.
It does make sense, but they still missed a lot of groups, though. Like I don't know.
No arguments there.
Crew. I don't know how they missed. Love Squad is huge.
Yeah.
Like, I think Love Squad probably has over 30,000 people in it.
Yeah, a lot.
So I don't know how they missed that. But they have the Irish Yanks on there, which no shade to Daniel, because I think he's awesome. First of all, my youngest son's name is Daniel, so he automatically has a soft spot with me. But like, there's no way his group has more than Love Squad. So I don't know. I don't understand how he chose.
Well, I'm wondering for him if it's trying to signal that he's actually still with the company. Since he's been off the schedule and he dropped off the homecoming panel. So I wonder if that's just a quiet way of signaling, hey, don't worry, Daniel's not going anywhere.
Ah, okay. I didn't know he was off of a homecoming panel, but that makes sense.
Yeah, he was originally on the Friday at 5 p.m. newbies one, but he got swapped for somebody in the last couple days, I think.
Oh,
it seems like a pretty big mix of old and new. So I imagine like Daniel's sort of went viral pretty quickly with some of his little catchphrases. So I wonder if that was sort of a testament to some of that. Just pairing old and new, because you're right, Danielle, like people in Boo Crew I think we're about to riot, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Love Squad was the same, but they're pretty well established, and so it might, obviously, again, Peloton may not be doing a great job of supporting long-standing relationships, but maybe this is them trying to balance that a little bit.
All right. So
yeah, I just couldn't figure out the rhyme or the reason for how they picked groups,
right,
and put them in there. I mean, I don't have a problem with any of the ones that they picked or didn't pick, but it just was like, well, what was your reasoning behind picking these groups? I mean, honestly, it would have made the most sense to pick some of the newer groups that maybe the instructors are struggling a little bit to build their fan base.
Right.
In my opinion, pick those groups and kind of get them connected. But that's just me.
So I'm going to go ahead and close it out, you guys. I know everybody, it's the middle of the week, and I want to make sure that, I don't hold you guys too long. And plus, Erica's like sending me these gifts. She's laughing at me because she knows how mushy I am, and I'm tearing up over here over Lori's comments. I'm trying to I'm going to have to edit this video so y'all don't see me crying.
Okay, that wasn't my point. It was to give kudos for kudos are due.
Now I'm going to have to edit this video, Lori. Damn. Okay, but I appreciate you all. I'm glad I got you. I know it's late on a Tuesday night and held you guys past 9:30. So I'm going to close it out. Well, we still didn't get to those other 5 or so topics, Danielle. So I guess they're going to roll into Saturday.
Do we ever? I mean, have we literally ever gotten through an entire agenda? Never. It's never happened.
I know. That's all right. But yeah, they can. Those will hold. So I'll just throw them on Saturday. And so I'll get to editing my tears and cries out of the video and post it. And I appreciate you guys joining. And if I don't see you guys on the bike or tread before Saturday, I'll see you guys in our weekly wellness shift on Saturday. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Night.
Talk to you later.